let's move forward. So we've just done this. Very pregnant silence, followed by. So again, all of this should feel free and improvised, like we're meandering. Always keep that in mind. Make this whole section sound like you're speaking, like it's a voice. Really, singing, speaking, but not like a piano. Try to put the whole idea of piano completely out of your head and pretend like you're speaking with the keys. This way, there's going to be a much more human and natural element to the way that you choose to do rubato, which I think most people don't know how to do well. Okay. So this is what we're about to have a look at. Left hand first. Easy enough. 3, 2, 3. 4, 3. And then 1, 2 to 4. The one thing to keep note of here is that the last 3 notes I just showed you is written as a triplet. So it should have a feeling of a grouping of 3. Ya da da. 1, 2, 3. So keep those as a kind of unit in and of themselves. But you don't have to be too rigid with the rhythm here. From here, we switch to 4 to 3. Like that. Next. Resolving to D, and that D immediately comes up to 2. Finishing with 3, 4, 4. Once more with the triplet, we had switch to 3, hold, and then we have a little see? And that little ba-dum, that's part of the dotted rhythm from here. A little bit of a wait, and then and on the last note, which repeats, the D's that repeat, it's often useful to play, if it's the same note being repeated, play it with different fingerings. It's much easier to phrase that way. It's not necessary. A lot of people do it, a lot of people don't. But I want to give you that as an option. If you have repeating notes where it's easy to do, I mean, it's very slow, you can definitely choose to do 4 and 4 or 4 to 3. It tends to be easier to phrase if you do the switch. Yeah. So once more from the triplet. Switch to 3, wait a bit, and then like that. Nice and slow, put all that together. Switch, hold, and then little like that. And as you get more comfortable with those notes, more and more begin to speak it, you know, try to really feel like there is like a human curvature to it. You know? And make it your own. Like before, the right hand is exactly the same notes, just an octave higher. So those are 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, then the triplet, 5, 4, 2. So take a couple moments, make sure you have that down. And then, as you might expect, we have a switch. 2 to 3. And then, ba-dum, 2, 4, 3, 2, 2, or 2, 3. Again, depending if you want to do the switch or not. Take a few moments, learn both the hands. The right hand. Cool. Both hands. Some freedom there. Speak it. And once we finish that, be very clear where you lift off of the keys. And one other thing that I thought I'd mention is, let's double back to this section. Is that necessary to say? No, I'm not going to confuse you. Moving on. When you do the switch, to avoid that bump, that space, I tend to do a little pedal there just to fill out that gap. So all of this is dry. Pedal, lift. And then pedal, lift. And when you lift, when you decide to kill the note, choose when to do it. Don't do it because you're already thinking about what's coming next. That choice of when to lift off the keyboard, when to lift off the pedal, meaning when to introduce silence, that's a musical choice. That's not something you should throw away and not think about. People sometimes forget that so much of the music happens in the silences or how the silences are introduced. And so they pay no attention to the way they lift off the keys, the way that they kill their sound. This is super important, especially in a section like this where silences are so paramount. So decide very clearly and deliberately how you want it to sound and when do you want it to lift off. When do you want silence to rush in? Then it'll keep people engaged. Otherwise, people will lose interest. I promise I'm not like seeing something that's not there because I want it to be there. There really is a difference between being flippant about silences and not. Okay, once we finish that. Moving on, we have this little transition. Now this is interesting. Some editions of the music show a crescendo towards it. So start quietly and then crescendo, getting louder. And then release the left and hold only the B flat. That's some editions. The edition I have in front of me, which I prefer, is the opposite. It starts a little bit on the louder side, not too loud, maybe mezzo forte, still very, very withdrawn. Where it sounds like it's becoming even thinner in texture. Yeah. So let's have a look at the notes first, and then we'll talk about, the music of it. So left hand, 1, 2, and 4, which then resolves to, or I shouldn't say resolves because it's not at all a resolved chord, but it ends up here. 1, 3, and 5. And you should break it up. On paper, it's a chord, but the chord has a little arpeggiation marking, which means you kind of play them one after the other. Of course, holding them down as you do it. So once more, that's put the pedal down, play the first chord, get into position, and then 1, 3, and 5, or 5, 3, and 1, in that order. That's your left hand. The right hand has the little melodic figure. 5, 2 to 4. Simple enough, right? And this is really setting the stage for the melody before it comes in, right? So this whole bit is trying to bring in the attention of the audience and have them focus in as much as possible to your every movement, to your every small sound, so that they're glued to whatever it is that you do. That's the effect that you need to create here. So together. Also, let me give you one alternative here. You can play it with this fingering, 5, 3, and 1, because that allows the third finger to stay on G, and it's quite straightforward to do. I think Corto's fingering, and I think I appreciate this with 1, 2, and 4, is it's a little bit easier to control a quiet version of this chord, I think. But anyway, you can do 5, 3, 1 or 4, 2, 1. But this is definitely 5, 3, 1. So anyway, whatever you choose, we'll have together and then 2. And when you do this, you know that the left hand rolls, ba, 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 right? So where do you play this B flat? Well, that's actually up to you. And I'm going to say this a lot throughout this piece. The hands, initially as you're learning this, yes, you have to decide, okay, these two notes are aligning and these two notes are aligning between the hands, these two notes are aligning. Makes it easier to learn if you think that way, right? But as you become better equipped and able to play this piece, all of those alignments can begin to blur and become more free. And this is where the beauty and artistry of Chopin comes in, and your interpretive skill comes in as well. How do you want to misalign them? That's the playing of the rubato and the spaces and the silences. So I leave that to you. This should be together, but then here, you can do these 3 followed by that, or you can make the top 2 align, or you can even put the B flat kind of in between all of these. Completely up to you, whatever you think sounds great. Pedal wise, we'll have put the pedal down, and then a pedal change on that. So pedal here, and then let me think of what's the best way. Change the pedal when you finish. When you get to the E flat, change, right? So pedal for this, and then up, down. Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb here. Change on the E flat. Let that decay. Lift the pedal. Kill the bottom, so you only have the B flat, and that allows you now to introduce our main melody here. Yeah, that's really, really nice. Yeah. So all of this is drama. Create a sense of drama. Okay, that's not too shabby. So in the next part, I'm going to have a look at the melody itself, and then we'll move forward from there. See you in just a bit.